today was going to try and discuss feminism and politics and trans movement. Where to start, really? Basically, let's start with Bindle, because one of the reasons why we are here today is because of the conference, which was cancelled, in which Julie Bindle was going to be speaking, as well as many other psychiatrists alongside her. And where most of the speakers are focusing on the psychiatry and psychology aspect today. So the question is, how does the political and particular the feminist gender and sexuality discourses surrounding trans, how do they interact with medical discourses? Now, for Bindle, there are two main areas which I wish to deconstruct here. The first being is that viewing trans as a construct stemming from medical discourses and as an invention of psychiatry. And the second one as trans people reinforcing the gender binary and just playing up to socially constructed gender roles. Obviously, both of which I disagree with. First off, the idea that trans stems from the 18th, 19th century and the early 20th century medical discourses. I think the problem here is taking a very much westernised model of gender and sexuality and not looking beyond our own academic cultures and looking at other cultures. And also not taking a historical perspective which stretches back further than the early sexologists. There are many historical examples of people who, I'm not going to say trans because I don't know what language they would have used to describe themselves, but people who perhaps in today's society we would consider to be trans. One of the earliest of which was a Roman emperor who was rumoured to have offered a large sum of money to anyone who could have performed surgery in order to construct a surgical female genitalia. Now, again, this is very far back in time, but that says to us that the idea of surgery to alter someone's external sex appearances does not just stem from this medical discourse, but has appeared in history at other points, and to have not looked that far back and to not look through the whole of history, we are taking a very narrow viewpoint. Secondly, cross-cultural representations of trans people. You have in Samoa the Fa'afafine. Does anyone know about the Fa'afafine? Go on.
Oh no.
So, okay, basically, oh god, Fa'afafine generally born male-bodied and live in female gender roles within the society, or is considered to be a third gender even. And this is something which has existed within this culture prior to Western influences. So how can we say that trans is a construct of Western medical science when we've got evidence, independent of this, of different cultures having different systems of organising gender roles? Another example comes from the indigenous peoples of America. I'm sure many people have heard the term two-spirit, which is actually a more modern term to describe people who identified outside of the male and female roles within those cultures, and many of which were considered spiritual leaders within their individual cultures. Now, I don't wish to take the whole of indigenous American cultures as one monolithic culture, because there were several different societies in there. Nonetheless, it was quite common for there to be models of gender roles which weren't simply of male and female in some of these cultures. And with this idea of the spiritual leaders, you could argue that in many of these, trans people were even revered. or equivalents thereof. Now, of course, you got onto this the issue of, again, Western influence. We say that there's a construct of Western imperialism or whatever. Sorry, Western imperialism, I was going to get onto imperialism and the of homophobia and transphobia almost being exported from our own culture to other areas in the world. I'm sure many people are familiar with this concept, so perhaps I shouldn't dwell on it too long. Nonetheless, these medical discourses have evolved from our underlying culture, which already had that bias against people whose genders and sexualities did not conform to the heteronormative ideal. And that really raises questions about the idea of the academic neutrality on a normative basis of science when you look at the evolution of sexology and psychiatry. I won't dwell too long on sexology and psychiatry because I believe that has been and will continue to be covered extensively in the course of the day. Nonetheless, we do have the issue of transphobia within the medical feminist movement. As I said, I already discussed Bindle viewing trans people as being a construct of psychiatry. I think the second thing was, sorry about this. Yeah, the idea of trans people reinforcing the gender binary. I think Natasha gave us a very good example on this, of how as much as people wish to present trans people as reinforcing the gender binary, I think it's worth noting that the gender binary is present throughout society. And if you look, I think it's self-evident to many of the people in this room, the amount of gender diversity we see within the trans community, of there being the fact that people identify as non-binary gender identities. I think that in itself says there is far more transgression of gender roles within the trans community than there is perhaps in the general population. And I think this comes from, I think, through being trans, that you do get that heightened awareness of the effect of the gender binary upon the individual. And I think that actually, the experience of being trans actually facilitates and questioning the gender binary, and the very existence of trans people helps to undermine that as a concept. Yes, in addition to this, the idea of trans not existing or being a construct of psychiatry, this comes coupled with reducing the argument back down to a sex binary of a supposed pure male form and pure female form. I think, again, I think that is also false. The existence of intersex people, the fact that different individuals have different secondary sex characteristics, different characteristics in general, it says to me that there's a great diversity in biological sexes as well as our genders, even though there may be certain patterns emerging where some forms are more common than others. I think it's very important to emphasise the fact that sex is not binary, neither is gender, within these arguments. And through her arguments of reducing gender back down to the biological, as Mindel does, in fact she argues that gender does not exist. But the fact is, she then reduces things back to terms of a sex binary, and then we're back down to the same core problems there of dividing humanity into two. Okay, I focused a lot on Judy Bindel. I believe some people have already mentioned Janice Raymond and her effect on the trans community, particularly in America, with the withdrawal of treatment. So again, not only do we have some very shaky theories here, which are looking only at one discourse, not analysing from a range of perspectives and bringing that all together, we also have a theory which is very dangerous in its effects it can have on people. I don't think I really need to say that to the people in this room. Nonetheless, that is the case.